Excellent. So good evening, everyone. My name is Joanne. I am the president of the League of Women Voters of Loudoun County. Welcome to tonight's School Board Candidate Forum. We're so glad you joined us tonight. By being here, you're taking an important step as an informed voter towards building a better Loudoun for all of us. We also want to thank the candidates for being here and for running for office to make our community better. Unfortunately, April Chandler and Matt Malone had another engagement and were not able to attend. Samuel Yan did not respond to our request. A heartfelt thank you to our co-sponsors organizing this. Sigma Mu Mu, which is the Loudoun chapter of Omega Psi Phi, Loudoun Delta Sigma Theta, Loudoun PTA, and the Loudoun Now newspaper. We're also deeply grateful to many volunteers and donors who made this event and others like it free and accessible to the public. Your support helps strengthen civic engagement across Loudoun County. And on that note, 7 p.m. on October 30th at Russ Library, the League of Women Voters of Loudoun County and Loudoun County Public Library will present the first in a series of civic conversations with refreshments called Let's Talk About. Liz White from Upvote Virginia will present our first free and public conversation on ranked choice voting. I hope you will join us. Please be aware that the Halloween parade is going on in Leesburg in an hour before the event, so please plan accordingly. If you'd like to stay informed about future events, be sure to visit our website at lwvloudon.org. Also, early voting is underway through November 1st, as you probably know, and Election Day is Tuesday, November 4th. Be sure to bring a friend. Because tonight's forum centers on our schools, we'd like to take a moment to recognize the Loudoun PTA's role in supporting students, families, and educational equity. I'd now like to invite Sherilyn Pascal, president of the Loudoun PTA, to share a few words. Sherilyn?
Okay, good evening, everyone. My name is Sherilyn Pascal, and I'm honored to serve as the president of the Loudoun County Council PTA. It's a privilege to stand before you tonight as a proud sponsor of this important event hosted by the League of Women Voters. The Council is a division of the nonprofit, nonpartisan National Parent-Teacher Association, the oldest and largest child advocacy association in America. For 125 years, PTA has worked with school communities and decision makers to solve the toughest problems in our nation's history. Loudoun County Council PTA is deeply committed to empowering families, fostering civic engagement, and advocating for every child's education and well-being. Supporting this candidate forum aligns perfectly with our mission to ensure that our community is informed, involved, and inspired to make a difference. We thank the League of Women Voters for creating this space for dialogue and transparency. And we're grateful to each of you for showing and participating in the democratic process. Thank you.
Thank you, Sherilyn. And thank you again to the Loudoun PTA for your continued support for our schools and families.
Thank you.
Before we begin, I'd like to briefly explain the format of tonight's forum. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to introduce themselves. We'll then move into the question portion where each candidate will have 1 minute to respond to each question. At the end, candidates will have a chance to offer 1 minute closing remarks. This forum is being recorded and will be posted on the YouTube channel at LWV Loudoun, so community members can watch it and share it afterwards. Now I am pleased to introduce our moderator for the evening. Norman K. Styer is the executive editor of Loudoun Now, a graduate of Loudoun Valley High School and Penn State. He has covered the people, places, and governments of Loudoun County since 1988. Yes, back when there were only 4 high schools and a school, and school board members were appointed by county supervisors. He was a founder of Loudoun Now in 2015 after nearly 3 decades at the Loudoun Sun-Gazette and Leesburg Today, working as a reporter, editor, and publisher. Last year, Loudoun Now converted to a nonprofit news model and relies on reader support and philanthropy to expand its community journalism operations. Go check it out at loudounnow.com. Norm has moderated many of these forums for us through the years, and we're glad to have him here today. Norm? It's all yours.
Unmuting. Thank you all. It's been a while since we did a Zoom one of these, but we have done them and did during COVID. So thank you all for putting this together, and thank the candidates for being here. Just one point. So I have my list. We want to rotate questions so that somebody's different starts first each time. So I have my list in district order and alphabetical order. So we'll go Broad Run with Ross, and then Dulles with Munoz and Peppers, and Leesburg with Shernoff, and Sterling with Arben, and then Amy. And so we'll rotate them through that way, so you know. So I think we'll start with the opening statements with Ross Stevens.
Hi, everyone. I'm Ross Svenson. Thank you so much to League of Women Voters for hosting us tonight. I grew up here in Ashburn, Virginia. I moved here when I was 5 years old, and I had a great experience in the public schools at Hillside Elementary. I was in the first class of first graders when it opened in 1998, and I am now a new parent. I have a 10-month-old here, and when my wife and I were thinking about where we wanted to raise our family, the answer was pretty clear. It would be back home in Loudoun County because of the amazing public schools we have here. So I'm running to represent Broad Run on the Loudoun County School Board because I want to ensure that all Loudoun students, including my son, have the same kind of amazing education that I did as a kid. And that, to me, that means making sure that we're building pathways, career pathways for all our students so that they can have success after their K through 12 education and pursue their American dream. It means that we are supporting our teachers, that we're offering competitive pay and benefits so that we are getting the best educators here in Loudoun County. It means that we are providing the resources for comprehensive curriculum and all the other elements of the public education experience that make our schools such a great place: comprehensive athletics, arts, extracurriculars. So that's why I'm running. I want to make sure that my son and the other Loudoun students have the same kind of experience that I did. And thank you so much. And I look forward to speaking with you all tonight.
Ms. Munoz.
So good evening, and thank you once again, the League of Women Voters here in Loudoun County, and to everyone hearing and seeing this online. My name is Santos Munoz. I'm running to represent the Dulles District on the Loudoun County School Board. I'm a retired Air Force Lieutenant Colonel with 24 years of service. Leading teams in operations, training, educational initiative, managing multi-billion-dollar assets, and making decisions where accountability was not an option. Or it was not optional, I should say. After my military service, I chose to call Loudoun County home because this is a community that values family, education, and opportunities. One of those opportunities that I was blessed to receive was to serve currently as the chair of the Education Committee in the Commonwealth of Virginia Latino Advisory Board. But in recent years, the school board has lost the trust of too many families. Decisions are made without transparency, policies are rushed, and politics have taken place instead of common sense, as I say. I'm running to restore that trust, to make sure parents, teachers, students are heard at all times. I believe in fiscal responsibility, academic excellence, and safe schools for every child, no matter their background. They should be able to thrive. I want Loudoun to be a place where our students dominate in every area, academics, arts, athletics. They should dominate no matter what. And where we are open for doors for everybody, not just few. We need to have STEM pathways. We have trades program, partnerships with local businesses and universities to prepare our kids for real careers. I'm not a politician. I'm a neighbor, parent, and a problem solver who believes leadership is about listening, learning, and doing what's right, even when it's hard. Thank you so much for your opportunity, and I look forward for this lovely forum. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Pepper?
Good evening, everyone, and also thank you to the League of Women Voters for having us here tonight to discuss the issues and let the constituents know a little bit more about ourselves. My name is John Pepper, and I'm running also for the school board seat in the Dulles District. I've spent the last 2 decades of my life working in public education. I have served in every role you can imagine. I've been a teacher, a coach, a dean, an assistant principal, a curriculum developer. I've traveled around the country teaching math and science teachers how to implement online simulations into their classroom. I've worked on school budgets. I've worked on school system budgets. If there's a facet of public education that exists, I'm deep inside and know how it works. But most importantly, my greatest role in public education happened in the last 5 years when I became a parent. I'm the proud parent of 2 now Loudoun County Public School students, a 4th grader and a kindergartner. And to say that their experience has been excellent is true. But I'm running because I'm worried about what the future holds. As someone who's worked deeply in public education, I see the attacks on public education every day, and it happens all over the country, and it's happening right here in Loudoun County. We are facing a crisis financially. Our schools are, right now, we just saw the news yesterday, the schools are $7 million short. We are facing a crisis among our male students where they're academically disengaged. We are facing a crisis among our students, Hispanic English language learners, students with disabilities who are not scoring as highly on their tests, but we're also facing a crisis with our educators. Our educators in Loudoun County are overworked. 84% of them are doing jobs they shouldn't be doing. In terms of, mental health, in terms of social emotional learning, things they're not trained for. They're underpaid. They're frustrated. So how do we work on standing up for public education? How do we stop these attacks? I am running because, most importantly, I'm a dad. And like my opponent said, I'm not a politician either. I am here because I care deeply about our public schools, and that's why I'm running.
Thank you. Ms. Shernoff?
Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much to the League of Women Voters for having us. I'm especially encouraged to see our student with us tonight. That just warms my heart so much. It's so awesome to see the engagement of our students in the government process. And so welcome to you, and thank you for being here. Thank you to all the rest of the candidates for being here. And I want to start off by saying I'm a mom. I'm a mom and a wife, and I have 2 beautiful daughters who are in our public schools, and they love our public schools. I love our public schools. And additionally, I am a teacher, and I think that that does make me uniquely qualified. And I am also the incumbent. I'm running again to continue this journey. I've been on the school board for almost 22 months now, probably the steepest learning curve in my whole life. But it has been a great honor to come to the table, to have a voice at the table, to represent my beloved community of Leesburg. And I am wanting to continue that journey. That's why I'm here. I ran last time, talked about how I just felt like educators needed a bigger voice at the table. I felt like decisions being made at the highest levels were not translating down. It was creating a gap between what was really happening in our schools and what was really needed. And I have tried to lead by example by spending most of my time in our schools, talking to our principals, talking to our incredible educators, engaging with students, and finding out what is it that they're really thinking about. What are the things that we can celebrate about our wonderful communities, and what are the things that we can do as a school board and as, in the administrative office to support the greatest needs in our school. And right now, I agree. I think we need to be celebrating that the schools are the heart of our community. And I am here again to just continue the work, because the work is so important, and making sure that students are safe and that they are achieving to their fullest potential is my #1 priority. Thank you.
Thank you. Arben?
Yes. Thank you so much to the League of Women Voters for having us here and for facilitating this conversation. I am Arben Istrefi. I am the current Sterling District representative on the Loudoun County School Board. I was first elected to the school board in 2023, and I wanted to keep the focus on student achievement, and I wanted to advance equity and be a fierce advocate for the Sterling District. I felt that school boards had become political battlegrounds, and I wanted to make this really about the community and to fight for showing people what the work was really about and how powerful it is when we can get it right, right? And deep down, I really believe that our children needed us to actually do the work. And so above and beyond that, I would agree with Ms. Shernoff that, the learning curve has been so humbling, but it's been such a privilege. I'm also the father of an LCPS kindergartner, and I have spent 15 years of my career doing technology and management consulting. And then I joined as the chief operating officer of a tech education company that connected learners across 30 different countries to technical skills and careers. I believe that I bring both the lived experience and a proven track record of results on the school board. I'm a first generation American who once struggled to learn English. And I know how important it is for our students to feel seen and supported and inspired in the classroom. And as a father of a young LCPS student, I want every family to know that their children have access to the very best opportunities that our county can provide. And so on the board, I've delivered and tried to expand after-school programming and bringing more resources to our Title I schools and expanding special programs to Eastern Loudoun where they didn't exist before. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Riccardi?
Well, good evening, everybody. I'm Amy Riccardi. And again, as everybody said, thank you all for being here tonight and thanks for having us. So again, I'm Amy Riccardi. I'm running here in Sterling. I'm a 16-year resident of Sterling Park. And if I was to describe our community, I would say it is kind of the home to a lot of just really, really diverse and interesting families and students. It has been such an interesting environment to live in and such a great one. We've learned so much living here for the last 16 years. I've been here in Northern Virginia since 1996. I'm originally from Texas, where I went to college and I grew up. Actually, I was a NASA brat. My dad trained astronauts in NASA in Houston growing up. So it's a pretty interesting environment there. For the last 30 years, I have been the CEO of a management consulting firm where we focus on human capital and change management. So I've worked with everything from major government organizations all the way down to small mom and pop organizations, associations, nonprofits, a wide range of organizations. And every time we get in with a new client, we're always in a brand new environment, learning really new things. I was really blessed this last year to be able to work for Ms. Shernoff as a policy aide and really kind of get into the environment here in Loudoun County, and have been really engaged attending the school board meetings for the last 3 years. I happen to have a master's degree in education from George Mason. In addition to running my company, I'm also an adjunct professor at George Mason in the business school. So I teach and I see firsthand the outcomes of our public school kids at Mason, and it's a really interesting environment. My husband and I each have we have together 4 kids, 2 each, who are all public school educated. And they were all in high school or right out of high school during COVID. So we had a really unique environment and experience learning with them. And I'm really interested in the discussion we're going to have here over the next hour.
Right. Thank you. And so we'll get into questions. We have questions that were submitted to the league, and I've tried to combine them, organize them in some fashion. I have some that I've added in here for my own. And because the school board is not only have stewardship of our children, they also have a stewardship of our budget. So I never do one of these without having a good budget question. There's $2 billion involved here. So start off with there, and this will go to Mr. Munoz, and then we'll just follow the same order that we've done through. So we'll get into a rhythm. But so the school board is just preparing for this challenging budget season. the enrollment's plateaued and there's significant shortfalls in the health insurance program. We have goals to expand specialized programs and academies. What should the goals, the priorities be for this year? Mr. Munoz.
Sorry. So I would say that the first priority is to have the trust and transparency on how the money is used. It's a $2 billion budget, as you said, and it must be prioritized to classroom teachers but not the bureaucracy. I believe that there's been a growing trend to, I believe it's now that in January, when they publish the budget, I think 6.5% was supposedly advocated for the administration. And that should be going to children. And I would say that every dollar should support student learning and safety, nothing more, nothing less. That would be my my going in position.
Mr. Peppers?
So having worked on a school system budget, the last time there was a financial crisis in 2008, 2009, the most important thing that we prioritized was people over programs. We wanted to ensure that every dollar went to our classroom teachers and not the expansion of programs. You can always bring a program in later, but what you can't do is recoup those people that you lose during difficult times. And so we need to be very creative with how we use the budget. We want to make sure that our money is aligned with those people who directly face students. We're talking about teachers, we're talking about paraeducators, we're talking about bus drivers, we're talking about school-based administrators, not necessarily central office administrators. Those individuals deserve to be rightly and justly compensated so that they stay in Loudoun and keep their experience and keep their connections at our school. Those will be the priorities for my budget. And I agree, our budget needs to be much more transparent. I know it's hard to go line by line. For example, Arlington Schools has a 148-page line-by-line budget. So it's being careful, it's being transparent, and it's listing, but it's putting our money in the place that directly affects our students the most. And those would be my priorities.
Ms. Shernoff?
Thank you for the question, and it's timely as we just addressed this in the board meeting on Tuesday, and I did share that I have significant concerns as as you're listing them off, and what I'm worried about is that the ongoing strategy for LCPS has been that we take the surplus from our operational budget and we kind of plug the holes as we go along, if we have deficits or and that has worked for us because we have always had that surplus, but for the first time ever, we are not going to have that, and there's a multitude of reasons that are colliding together this year, and it is making me concerned. I 100% believe that every dollar needs to be assessed to see if it moves the needle for our kids. When I look at the achievement gaps that we are facing, particularly with our English language learners and our special education students and our economically disadvantaged, I'm concerned. We need to be making sure that resources are allocated there. And then that trickles down to how do we do that for kids? That's people. You can have the greatest curriculum in the world, but it's who delivers that curriculum. It's how you meet the needs that are sitting in front of you in that classroom. And that means teachers have to feel supported. And that comes in a multitude of ways, but that starts with our budget. And so I am really anxious in a way to see how this plays out, the conversations, but I know we tout ourselves on being the best and the brightest and doing all the new things, but we got to make sure those foundations are solid before we can even have those conversations this year.
Mr. Istrefi?
Yes, thank you. I agree with the sentiments, right? There is some real concern over our budget. I think one of the things we have to realize is that while enrollment has plateaued, costs haven't, right? The overwhelming majority of our budget, more than 90% of it is driven by school-based personnel, our teachers, the staff. And so if we want to keep and attract great teachers, we have to continue to invest in competitive pay and salary increases. Over the last 2 years, we've approved raises that exceeded 6%, which is significantly more than previous years, which I think help Loudoun remain one of the top 4 school divisions in the country. I'm sorry, in Virginia, rather. So it's really important for me also that we realize that our student populations are changing. So we're having to serve a higher percentage of English learners, students with disabilities, children with higher needs. And so those shifts require more specialized staff or smaller classrooms, not fewer. And so one of the other priorities I'll mention is we have over a dozen of our oldest buildings that still require renovations and critical systems renewals that take a huge chunk of our capital budget. And so rather than focusing on the bells and whistles where we have them in the division, we need to be focused on these few things that I just mentioned.
Mr. Riccardi?
I'm going to take a kind of a big macroeconomic view of this too, because I've got some experience with pretty large multi-billion-dollar budgets. I think one of the things that's both strategic and tactical, and I think one of the things I learned this last budget cycle was that, and I think this is pretty eye-opening, is that the school board doesn't really have line item insight into how the money is actually being spent. And when you don't have line item, especially with this whole last board, which is all brand new, when you don't push to get line item transparency, and you can't get line item transparency, it makes it really difficult to understand from which buckets you're going to be pulling to put towards other programs. It makes it really difficult to understand where the priorities are with the school administration versus the board. And it's hard to get those two things aligned properly. So my big thing right now is making sure that in this next budget process, we actually understand how the money's actually being spent. And then we also take a very hard look at our administrative costs for LCPS and especially salaries.
Okay. Mr. Svenson?
So I think that it's the budget process, when that's being decided, it's a really important opportunity for the school board to assess what programs are working well for students and what maybe isn't working as well as intended, and then to make sure we're doubling down on what's working and maybe change direction where it's not. In terms of priorities for this coming year, the current school board has put together a number of innovative programs, or there's new programs in recent years like Hamsci Academy, Access Academy. Want to make sure that those programs, like that, we're addressing any gaps that emerge or resources we see need to be allocated there in those first few years of operation, so that they get off to a successful start. And then, because of the uncertainty on the federal level, with the gutting of the Department of Education, with programs that support students with disabilities, special education, English language learners, we have to make sure that we're prioritizing that at the local level and working with the Board of Supervisors and with partners in Richmond to make sure that those programs and the students that are served are supported, because that's really important to closing the achievement gap.
All right. We've got a second question, and starting with Mr. Peppers. And so voters in this cycle cannot escape the constant messaging about school division's policy 8040 and the protections for transgender students. So what should the policies be? Should the school board be handling this issue differently than they are?
So the most important thing a school board can do, and the most important thing I said, is that we need to follow the law. And right now, whether we like it or not, the law is Grimm v. Gloucester. And should we not follow it, we are setting ourselves up for $1 million lawsuit, just like the county of Gloucester, Virginia did in the Grimm case. That being said, one of the things I think the school board did that was clever with policy 8040 was they built in this idea of onus. And what it does is it insists on having gender neutral bathrooms for any student who wants in. So what that did in that policy is it took the onus off of a small but marginalized group of people and put that onus onto any student who feels uncomfortable. And that's really important. You're not singling out any single group. You are saying simply to anyone, whether it's for religious reasons, whether it's for body reasons, if you don't feel comfortable, there is a place for you. And so we have waded into this. A memo from the Department of Ed doesn't supersede the law. And right now we have to do what the law says.
Ms. Shernoff?
Thank you for the question. To me, what's really worrisome about this policy is that I don't believe it should ever be framed as we are going to protect kids versus not protecting kids. We must protect all kids, full stop. And LCPS does that. And I firmly believe that. And we did that before 8040. We're doing it now. And I believe we must continue to protect all students. The issue I have, and I brought this up a couple months ago, is that I feel like we have to assess whether 8040 is accomplishing what it set out to do. And given the fallout and the backlash and the continued pressing from the public to revisit it, I don't believe that it is. And we have policies, policy 8030, student discrimination and harassment, and policy 1040, equal opportunity for equitable, safe, and inclusive environments, that list out and protect all students. And this is the only standalone policy. And I believe that those protections could easily fit into those other policies, which is what we did before. And that is how we protect all groups equally.
Mr. Istrefi?
Thank you. I agree. I believe LCPS is protecting all students, and for the reasons that Mr. Pepper also said, in terms of making sure that any student can request accommodation or not be gaslighted or judged for any position that they have or any accommodation that they need. I think this is an issue where clarity and compliance needs to guide how we act. So as was mentioned under Gavin Grimm, the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals, which governs Virginia law, has repeatedly upheld that Title IX protections extend to transgender students. So while the interpretations at the federal level will continue to evolve, our responsibility as school board members is to follow that law as it stands and ensure that LCPS operates within that framework, and we stay focused on making sure all students are safe, their privacy is respected, and that they're able to thrive. And I think we've come a long way with our Title IX office as well. I mean, we've engaged, in addition to the team that we have in place, we engage independent auditors and legal experts on Title IX in every investigation that we have. And we're making sure that we have this transparent oversight to eliminate any ambiguity about how we comply with state and federal laws. So at the heart of this is our students, and we just have to stay focused on protecting them, their privacy, and their dignity and well-being.
Mr. Riccardi?
So I'm probably the only one on this call, but I'm a former Division I volleyball player, a coach, and a referee of girls sports. And I have I'm working with the Parkview girls volleyball team too. And Title IX is Title IX. It's been on the books for a really long time, and it protects the separation of boys and girls' private spaces. And I have gone and talked to, at this point in time, thousands of parents here in this district. And the number one question I get asked is my view on this issue. Of course, I want all students to be safe and feel respected, absolutely. But I am very much into our minor children needing to make sure that they have their own private spaces to do that. And again, we do have single-use bathrooms for students who feel like they want that, and that's fantastic. But we have a 90-10 issue here, and we've got to come up with some other ways to be able to address this issue and make sure that we're protecting boys and girls spaces.
Mrs. Svenson?
Thanks for the question. Every student in Loudoun County deserves to feel safe in school, and it's an obligation of the school board to ensure that we are keeping our students safe, because when they feel safe and included in the school environment, they're going to do better academically, socially. And I'm an attorney in my day job, and it's really important that Loudoun County continues to adhere to anti-discrimination policies and comply with legal precedent. You know, the Fourth Circuit governs law here in Virginia, and it's really important as a school board that we continue to follow the law and ensure that students feel safe in school.
Mr. Munoz?
So thanks for the question. I also believe every student deserves to be safe, respected, protected, and acknowledged. My concern is the accountability and communication. I think we are, again, I'm not a lawyer, but I believe that we are not in compliance with Title IX. And by continuing this path, I don't think it helps the kids that it is designed to protect. I've talked to many mental health professionals and parents of trans kids, and they tell me during this process that the policy doesn't help the kids. And on top of that, we're risking funding that from the federal government that is aligned for Title I schools and special educations, and those things that are risk, eliminating the possibility of thriving for many, many thousands of other kids. And that's my take on that particular issue.
Sorry, Ms. Shernoff. There's been pressure nationally and locally to roll back diversity, equity, and inclusion and accessibility programs. Should Loudoun schools continue to have a DEIA office? Do you support keeping and enforcing the current anti-discrimination policy?
Thank you so much. I have a unique view, I think, on equity. I spent a large portion of my teaching years working in Title I schools, Obviously, I believe that school community and making kids feel welcome and seen and heard and loved is absolutely foundational to making sure that they can learn. My biggest concern with DEIA and the way that it's sort of gone is I see a lack of accountability when it comes to achievement, because there is no other way to make a kid feel like they don't belong when they're getting pulled out 3-4 times a day because they are below grade level on their content. And when you look at our scores, and you see those different subgroups that are behind, that is telling me that we have work to do with diversity, equity, and inclusion and accessibility, that kids do not have the resources maybe that they need. So I believe that kids should have access to the resources that they need to succeed. I would like to see that turn towards a conversation about accountability for achievement.
Mr. Istrefi?
Yes, thank you so much. You know, one of the ways I describe equity, I think that it comes from this belief that every student matters, right? And that no two students are the same. And that's really one of the core beliefs within education. And I really do support the work that our DEIA office and educators within DEIA are doing at LCPS, because that work is fundamental to public education, right? And this body of work that we call equity and inclusion in education is really about ensuring that every child, regardless of their background, their language ability, can access high quality education and opportunities, and make sure that they have this sense of belonging that they need to thrive. And so I've seen that work day to day within DEIA in terms of their hands-on role, supporting equity leads in our schools, professional learning for teachers, guiding inclusive instructional practices as well. And really helping schools analyze the data around closing the achievement gaps. So I do support that work, and I think it's fundamental to public education.
Mr. Riccardi?
Yeah. So I would say while looking at the data is really important, it's easy and it's quick to be done. The reality of it is 66% of our Sterling Park schools are English learners, and they are primarily at least 1 or 2 grade levels behind in their reading. And when kids get that far behind in reading, and it compounds year over year, I've had teachers and parents both tell me, we're graduating kids that are years behind in reading. And the sense of belonging scores in our Sterling schools is really high. Our kids feel really loved and welcomed and respected in our Sterling Park schools in particular. The problem is that we haven't, for more than a decade now, the data shows that we haven't cracked the nut on getting our kids to proficiency in reading and other subjects. And that is my passion, because if we can get our kids reading on grade level and really successful, then they're going to thrive. And that is really key for me.
Mr. Svenson?
Yes, I support having the DEIA office, and I think it's really important that we are continuing this work. And it's important because we're working on creating an inclusive environment for students so that they can achieve academically and thrive socially in the school environment. And so I think that it's important work that we're doing, and yeah, that's my answer. Keep it short.
Mr. Munoz?
Well, I'm a data-driven decision maker, and I believe that you need to show that the money and resources allocated to this program is actually correlating to actually achievements and graduation rates and everything. I don't think the trend is there. I believe that we should focus more on fundamentals in school, reading, writing, math, and arts, and also the ability to have athletics in a huge way. And as was mentioned before, one of the other candidates, we need to not focus in programs, but focus on the achievements and the education and the protection of the kids. We have civil liberties and other programs at the federal level that protects every child. And I believe that we lost the ball or the eye on what is the real fundamental things that we need to do as a school board member. We need to make sure that those fundamentals are preserved, not focus too much on programs, but results. And I don't see the results.
Mr. Pepper?
Mr. Riccardi just said, sense of belonging scores really high in Sterling Park. And that's a lot of what the DEI office is doing, right? Whether or not the students are achieving in reading, and it's super important for them to achieve in their reading scores, right? No one's going to disagree with that. But you're not going to be able to access those programs. If a student doesn't feel like they belong, a lot of them aren't going to come to school in the first place. So we need an office that understands every single student, understands where they're coming from, and they're not focused on test scores, right? Test scores are super important, but they're focused on things like student mental health, student belonging, student well-being, making sure our teachers can reach students of different backgrounds and different cultures. So there is an important role that this DEI office plays, whether it's through professional development, whether it's through developing lessons. There's a lot of really, really, really important good work this DEI office is doing. And remember, we're trying to raise whole citizens here. That's the other piece of the puzzle. We are trying to raise whole productive citizens in society. And to do that, everyone needs to feel like they belong.
Thank you. We'll start with Mr. Istrefi. So in addition, since the pandemic, we've had a huge turnover in the school board, obviously, but we've also had a turnover in the leadership of the school division. And so how do you assess the performance of Superintendent Spence and his team at this point?
Yeah, thank you for the question. I've had the opportunity to work with Dr. Spence and the staff, and I believe that he started his leadership. He's really well respected in the field, as most people know, and he started in the right way with the right posture of listening. And so he established listening sessions across the county. Those listening sessions at all of our schools resulted in key metrics that we now track in the post-entry plan. And we, in terms of his leadership, I think that we're finally moving from a point of one-way communication from the division to families to this two-way communication where teachers, families, and students feel like they're being listened to, they're being engaged, and their feedback is taken into consideration. So I think that he's doing a phenomenal job. There are areas, obviously, as a board in our governance where we may disagree or push harder on some issues, but I feel like he's been the accountable leader that we've asked for a really long time in our division, and we'll continue to work with him, to push the boundaries of what we thought was possible for our kids here in Loudoun County.
Mr. Riccardi?
Yeah, so in my wheelhouse of work in the human capital space, evaluating CEOs and executives is a big part of what I do. And his evaluation process has not been transparent. It's been done very much behind closed doors. So the public really doesn't know what he's getting evaluated on or how the school board members feel about the varying aspects that he is getting evaluated on. When you take a look at our most vulnerable students, and again, Sterling Park is a great example of that, our students are not performing well. I love them dearly, and they really love learning, and they love their teachers, and they love their schools, but we have to do things different for our most vulnerable students, and not just the masses, but especially for the pockets of students that aren't performing well. And so I really want to take a good look at how this board has been evaluating his performance and see if we can come up with some metrics that are going to get us results for our low performing students.
Mrs. Svenson?
Yeah, I think over the last few years, before Dr. Spence was in office, Loudoun County had a lot of instability and change in the superintendent position. And I think it's really important that we've had someone who has brought that stability to the position, is able to work with the school board and kind of develop a relationship over time and execute on the priorities here in the school district. So I think it's really healthy and productive to have him there, and having been there already a couple of years and working with the school board into the future. And I think accountability, transparency are really important, and those are things that the school board should always push for. But I think we can do that with a partner who's in the current partner in the superintendent's office.
Ms. Munoz?
So I agree with some things that have been said already. We don't have the matrix, so we can assess what the performance is, good, bad, or anything. And I believe that the school board has not provided the right level of oversight on what he is doing. I have great concerns. I mean, this is not micromanagement. I'm talking about actual oversight on what he's doing. When he first came in, he was going to San Diego, for instance, for a speaking engagement in which the taxpayers were funding that. He goes, gets his fee of $15,000, as he's been reported, and then comes back, we subsidize his side hustle. And he did that while there was a crisis in schools. I mean, we have kids with overdoses and a couple other things that were happening at the same time. So I don't think he has kept the eye on the ball, as is being said. And I have serious issues about his performance, and that's where I land on that issue.
Mr. Pepper?
So superintendent goals and their evaluations are set by the school board. The school board gives the superintendent a set of goals based on a metric, and then they're evaluated as to whether or not they've made progress on that goals and how far they are. And that's set by a state board. And it maybe hasn't been as transparent as it needs to be, and that's fine. But as far as Dr. Spence's performance so far, he's done a lot of really good things. He stood up to the Trump administration's attacks on DEI. He's communicated excellently with parents and students and families, and every family I talked to has felt for the first time in many years that we've had a superintendent who's responsive. That all being said, it's not all roses, right? The teachers, a lot of the teachers, and I'm endorsed by the teachers, feel like that Dr. Spence isn't truly listening to all of their needs. And so there still is another level of communication that has to happen. But to find a superintendent who can handle a school division with the experience that Dr. Spence has, as large as ours, he came from Virginia Beach, it is a tall task. And right now he is doing a very good job bringing that stability to our school system.
Ms. Shernoff?
Thank you. I feel like being part of the board and having been able to work directly with Dr. Spence gives us a little bit more insight into the process. And it does, there are tricky parts of being a board member where it isn't as transparent as even I would like it to be. And this is definitely an area that I agree with, some of my other candidates here saying I wish it was, and we hope to address that. There are some things in his contract that we inherited that I wish we didn't, but those are things that we can't address. I will say that Dr. Spence is someone who you can meet with anytime. I have a very healthy push-pull with him, as Mr. Istrefi mentioned. We have areas where we don't agree, and we definitely have to hash that out, and we have. And so the thing that's tricky about this when it's not transparent is I'm asking the public to trust me. And that accountability is ongoing. It's every day. It's all the different things that are happening across the division. So that is the piece that I really want to focus on, is making sure that I'm holding him accountable the best I can as a school board member, but additionally that the public is trusting that I'm doing that. And so getting a more transparent process would be my desire.
Thank you. We'll start on this Riccardi. The nation's special education services have been significantly impacted after the layoffs at the Department of Education. Services for children with disabilities are expected to be especially impacted by that. What will be needed to support students with EIPs in Loudoun County Public Schools?
So I know a lot of this stuff is getting shifted over to different government agencies, and I also know that the state's going to be taking on some more responsibilities with this too. From what I understand about all this right now, and I think some of it is a bit fluid as far as what's actually going to wind up happening. I very much support our special education teachers. I've had a lot of opportunity to speak with several of them here in the Sterling district and talk about the needs, and it's really challenging for them, especially just in general. But I want to make sure that we're fully funding our special education programs and our teachers and making sure they have all the resources they need to be really successful. I think that from what I understand, again, I think that LCPS has complicated the process for IEPs and other types of plans for some students. And I want to definitely take a good look at that and see if we can fix that process and address those issues with our teachers and with our special educators. We've heard from parents and different groups about discipline issues and things like that within the SPED program too. So I want to make sure that we're really listening to our teachers and our parents and make sure that we craft the right kind of solutions and the right kind of supports for them in this newly designed system.
Mr. Svenson?
Thanks, Norm. Can you repeat the question?
This deals with loss of federal support for special education programs and services. And so what's going to be needed for Loudoun County to make sure those students with EIPs are supported?
Yeah, so I think Ms. Riccardi said that that functions had been transferred to other government agencies from the Department of Education. I don't believe that's true. And just this past week, the Department of Education gutted the special education office, and that has severe consequences for our students and students all across the country. Now, I hope it's reversed and that doesn't go forward, but it's a lot of uncertainty, and I think it's really stressful for parents and families here in Loudoun County. And we have to be on the front foot and proactive here to make sure that we are discussing locally on the school board with the Board of Supervisors how we're going to address this, because we have to make sure that our special education programs get the funding they need. And I think we've done a lot of great work here the last few years in Loudoun County in establishing the Transition Center serving students with disabilities. And that's something that's going to be on my mind during budget process, making sure that we are supporting the work that's being done there so that that remains successful.
Mr. Munoz?
So the first, so I'm very concerned because the federal funding for special education is at risk because of the decisions the current board has made, or the majority of the board has made. And that's the first thing. I'm very concerned about also the resources that are put to not only the IAP, but also the 504 plans. I've heard from many parents and mental health professionals that is not adequately resourced to provide that individualized care for kids that are in need in special care and special education. I also have heard, as recent as Sunday, of parents that are having tough times with their kids with special needs and the abuses that are happening for those kids. So there's a lot of reform that has to be done, a lot of oversight that has to be maintained, and a lot of questions that need to be asked in order to protect those kids, ensure parents are satisfied, and the funding gets reinstated or not at risk as it currently is, based on the decision the majority of the board is doing.
Pepper?
So the gutting of the Department of Special Education at the Department of Education is devastating for our students. It basically removes federal oversight from IEP programs. 504 is a different program that is not governed by federal law, but it is devastating to our students with IEPs, because should the Loudoun County schools commit an IEP violation, there really is no one for those parents to turn to. So we need to make sure that we have policies put in place, and this may trickle down to the state level to make sure that our students with special education have their rights protected. The other piece of the puzzle, without special education, while the Department of Special Education, we're losing funding, and it has nothing to do with the previous board's decision. It has to do with the Trump administration's crushing of the Department of Education. So we need to ensure that that money is there to help our special education students. And look, this is a crisis. This is a national crisis. So when I say that I'm standing up for public education in the country, this is what I mean. These are the bad actors who are trying to take down our public schools one chip at a time, one brick from the wall. And we need a school system to stand up and ensure that those programs that our most vulnerable students need are supported and funded at a local and state level.
Ms. Shernoff?
Thank you. As all these things are swirling with the federal government and our funding, and we talked about this a little bit with the budget, one of the things that's really important to me as a leader is to stay focused on my scope of control. And right now, that's more important in this area than ever. So LCPS has been committed as a foundation to support our special education students. Do we have areas for growth? Absolutely. And huge shout out to our parents, our special education advisory committee, who gets in the weeds on policy, and they advocate fiercely for these kids. And I've learned so much from them. And for our leadership that are really in tune with how these different levers that are being pulled are going to affect us. The thing it's going to come down to, again, is we're very blessed here to have a big budget in LCPS. We have the data center money. We have all the resources. We have to decide what we're committed to. And that, to me, as I've said, are these subgroups and our students. They have to come first. And if things are feeling vulnerable outside of our scope of control, then within it, we must control the things that are foundational to our educational beliefs. And that includes special needs students.
Mr. Istrefi?
I also agree with some of the comments made. I think the gutting of the special ed office, hopefully it's reversed. But we're talking about even conversations previous to this around the IDEA program having been already underfunded for so many years. And, state and local governments have already been kind of making up for that underfunding already. So if we're looking at some of these programs for our most vulnerable students getting underfunded even further. I think that is concerning. I agree. We've been ultra focused as a school board for the most part on our most vulnerable students across the board, and that has been refreshing. I mean, in the last 2 years, I've really appreciated the energy from my colleagues on the board around staying focused on our most vulnerable students. In the last year alone, we've been able to hire 150 special education positions and staff them this year, which has across the board nationally has been a challenge. Our focus on the Special Education Transition Center has been amazing, as well as prioritizing inclusive playgrounds around the county, making sure that no student is left out. I think has been important. And the last thing I'll mention is really that removing the practice of seclusion as a part of this board's action, right? And incorporating new frameworks like Uberu and MANT to help and empower our special education and gen ed teachers with challenges in the classroom.
All right, thank you. Starting with Mr. Svenson. This question is, what does equality in education mean to you?
Well, I think that it's a great question. I think that we have to recognize that not everyone is coming to the classroom with the same resources, the same backgrounds, the same experiences. And it's important for our educators to understand that, and that we are meeting students where they are, and that we are developing our curriculum so that we are supporting all of our students, no matter where they're coming from into the school system. So to me, it means that that's the best way to ensure that every student's having a great education, is that we're recognizing that each student is unique, and that we are preparing them for their goals and aspirations afterwards. So that's what it means to me.
Mr. Munoz?
Well, I believe that every kid deserves an education, regardless of race, ethnicity. It doesn't matter. Kids are kids, and they should have the same access to education and the fundamentals of education, regardless of that condition. So that's where I draw the line, that it has to be the same for everybody. Now, with that said, there are methods in which you can do education that is very unique for that particular demographic. For instance, in Sterling, we talked about Latinos kids. When they start learning, they say they use an adjective to this object. They say, "Give me the red cup," or the cold cup. So there are methods based on that massive demographic that can be tailored to that particular area, and we should explore those type of things.
Mr. Pepper?
So it's every student needs to get out of public school, but they need to be college, career, military ready for life. And as a school system, it's our job to get them there, right? And so it's recognizing that we have such differences in the students we have, whether they're English language learners, like Mr. Munoz said, whether they're coming to school hungry, like Mr. Svenson said. I talked to my daughter's kindergarten teacher years ago, and she was like, I don't even know what to do with this class, because I've got some kids like your daughter who know how to read, and I've got other kids who don't even know how to hold a pencil or interact with other students. So it is making sure that our teachers, our educators, they're equipped with the skills they need to differentiate their curriculum, so that every student has access to the curriculum at their level, so they can learn what is required in our Virginia Standards of Learning and from the Virginia Department of Education, and so that they can come out of the school ready to be a productive member of society. And it's making sure that we have the resources to provide that.
Ms. Shernoff?
I'm going to use a little bit of a cheesy metaphor here, but I really feel like our equality in our schools is about a symphony. And if you're in an orchestra, everyone's playing an instrument together to make a beautiful sound, but the diversity within that symphony is what makes it really sing and what gives it its depth. And that is our schools. And that is what our teachers are doing every day. And I really have to brag on them, because they are carrying a very heavy load. And, we have tried to focus, and we've seen gains in recruitment and retention, but the job is different now. I was doing it, it's different now. And so we have to support our educators to be able to meet those unique needs in front of you. And every single kiddo is coming with those different experiences and their different background. And then they have the interaction in school, and they have those different needs. And so while we can be a beautiful symphony, the only way that we can do that is if we are really attuned, no pun intended, to what they need in front of them. And that comes from so many different layers, and I don't have enough time to talk about all of those, but the sentiment for me is that we need to all come together and work together to give access for kids, but to meet those individual needs.
Mr. Istrefi?
Thank you. I agree on, it really comes down to our ability to help each student meet their own individual needs, and no two students are alike. So as a first generation student, I mentioned that I struggled to learn English growing up. And so I know that achievement gaps aren't about potential, right? They're about opportunity and access. And, you know, what we've done is we've invested in professional development, right? We've added more Title I positions. We've added flexible staffing. We've added mental health positions, but at the end of the day, it's not just about more positions, right? We need to trust our teachers. We need to give them the tools. We need to give them the space and the time to do what works. And we need to do things that help them to differentiate that learning within the classroom.
Ms. Riccardi?
Yeah, I agree with a lot of this, but I will say just specifically within the Sterling district in particular, we have almost 70% of our students are economically disadvantaged. And that brings a lot of things to the table that are basic needs like food and meals. It brings, we have massive issues with school supplies and kids not having school supplies. And that rolls up to our Title I teachers. I've seen more teachers this year asking for financial support for all these extra supplies for their classrooms. And so for me, this is playing out in a very practical way in Sterling Park, and it's really close to home. So as the school board's made decisions and federal funds are getting depleted, we've really got to figure out other ways and other partnerships with our nonprofit community to really help support in both food and school supplies too, from that perspective.
Thank you. So with Mr. Munoz, I want to go back to something that was mentioned earlier about the students being disengaged, male students being disengaged, and we've seen the benefits the students have had from putting the cell phones away during the school day. But we know we have this generation has shorter attention spans, and now we're dealing with AI in the classroom. So what are the challenges that students, just everyday students, face every day, and how do we help them with those?
So question is, what are the challenges every day for kids in school?
Yeah. I mean, what? Yeah.
Okay, so there's a generational, a new generation of students, obviously, that different than when I grew up. So the methods and tactics and procedures for education should be adapted for that. Right now, we know that there was the Executive Order 33, I believe, was that the governor signed to remove the cell phones from the classroom, and it seems like those type of actions are modifying the challenge of attention span for kids. It's too early to, we don't have set data sets to determine how effective that is and how it's going to change that attention span for kids. But yeah, I hear a lot of the parents saying that how kids feel overwhelmed with homework and things like that. And it's tough not to crack. And I think we need to do more analysis on that.
Mr. Pepper?
So as someone who's in schools every single day, I can tell you we got a very different generation of kids. And the cell phone thing is great. We've turned our kids, like our students, literally when they have their phones, they're zombies glued to it, walking through the halls silently, looking at the phones. Lunch, we used to complain about lunch being loud. Lunch is silent because the kids are staring at their phones, and it's affecting their attention span. It's affecting their ability to think critically. AI is doing a crazy amount of damage on students' ability to think critically. So we need to really think how we're doing education in this country. The other thing is when you have access to technology, you are 24/7 being bombarded with things like, how do I look? Am I being bullied? When we went to school, if we got picked on, when we got home, it stopped. It doesn't stop now. So one of the biggest things we need to really do is focus on mental health resources for our students. Some of the policies that have been put in place, like grading policies where kids can turn in late work forever, the floor is the 50%. Some of those things are actually doing more damage to our students than the good that they're doing. So it's looking at policies for grading, it's looking at policies that increase student anxiety, it's looking at supplying mental health resources, but we are in crisis and we need to attack it from a variety of different angles to try to defeat it.
Mr. Shernoff?
Thank you for the question. One of the things I'm really proud of as a school board is that cell phone policy. And I just want to highlight a little bit of the process that I went through personally. And again, this goes back to my opening statement is I'm spending time in schools, because if you want to find out what the challenges are for students, you need to talk to our students. That's the most important thing. So I had principals that were holding focus groups, bringing them together so we could talk about them. And we're still holding those focus groups so we can hear how it's going. And they are talking about how that has been so positive for them. I will mention that the revamping of the grading policy and bringing back some of those high expectations and preparing kids for the world after high school, I think has been huge. We also developed an AI policy, which I initiated and the full board passed, to kind of put some, guardrails on how we're making sure that the learning is protected. And going forward, I really personally, one of my goals is to see some of our youngest learners get off of those Chromebooks. I don't think kindergartners need a Chromebook going home. I don't think they need them one-to-one. I think we got to get back to paper, pencil, and all the old school chart paper. And, authentic learning is still the way the child is developing. And that child development hasn't changed, even though the technology has.
Mr. Stuffy?
Yeah, thank you so much for this question. I agree. I'm really proud of the school board for initiating the cell phone policy. I think it's done a whole lot. And I think it was LCPS had done it before the executive order came out. So it's something I'm kind of proud of, right? And I think we fundamentally need to rethink and keep rethinking how we engage the generation of digital natives and kids who suffered learning loss as well. We can't forget that, and are maybe going through mental health or, and by extension, behavioral issues at home or at school. So I also agree on the grading policy. I think our curriculum and instruction, hint, hint, Ms. Shernoff, and the team have really done a phenomenal job. And I went back and forth on, okay, what is the sweet spot? But at the end of the day, it was this fundamental assumption that we knew that we couldn't assume that our grading policy was perfect and just leave it alone. We needed to change it. And I'm really eager to see the results of the changes that we've made. I think that we've done a lot in terms of adding mental health supports that are school-based. We've added our student assistance specialists to really help take the pressure off of the teachers in many respects. And I think we need to be able to engage students earlier in terms of the opportunities and pathways and career pathways that they might have. We have to rethink how to keep them engaged in the classroom, because the old ways may not be what will work for this generation.
Norm, could you repeat the question just so I make sure I hit it?
That's sort of made up on the fly. So it's dealing with the issue is brought up about students being disengaged, and we've seen the impacts of the cell phone policy. These students, this generation has a smaller attention span, the cyberbullying and so forth. What do we need to help these students be successful in the classroom?
Right. So I see that at the college level, right? So I'm seeing all these kids in their early, late teens, early 20s, and how they show up now in college. And I'll tell you, and it's interesting too, because even in the professional environment with my clients, I run a lot of professional development workshops, and I have moved back to workbooks with pen and paper. And I don't deliver them electronically. And the reason why is that people learn best with handwriting. Children learn best with handwriting. It imprints what they're learning better in their brains. And and I think one of the worst things we've done is introducing laptops to our youngest children way too early. And I get that was a thing in COVID, but if I was to make one big education suggestion for our children, especially our youngest ones that are learning to read and write and do math and science and history and all those things, is that we get back to books and we get back to some basic writing, and then bring in the technology and AI, because I love AI and I love the technology, but we've got to do this at a more age appropriate level so that we get kids learning first.
Mr. Svenson?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, I'm a new parent of a 10-month-old, and I'm very anxious about what the future holds in terms of social media, cell phone, and all of that kind of comes into the environment in school and outside of school. So I am grateful that there's been this change to the cell phone policy, and I think it's really important that we strengthen mental health supports in our schools so that and make sure that we're preparing our educators to handle these situations, which are in many cases new. It's important that we have this professional development so folks are equipped to handle the new situations that occur because of technology. And I think it's really important we don't lose sight of the kinds of activities that create student buy-in at school outside of the classroom. So sports, arts, theater, music, other extracurricular clubs that can really create a community at school for students and really help counteract some of the I guess just feelings of loneliness that can come about because technology can be very isolating, particularly using cell phones, social media.
All right, sorry, Mr. Peppers. Many parents are concerned about the privacy of their children's school records. Do you believe ICE should have the right to access division records or question students on campus without parental consent?
No. End of discussion. No. ICE, FERPA protects our students' right to privacy. It's the federal education right to privacy. The only people that should have access to their student records are parents and the students, and or a new school if that student is transferring to it. That is federal law. ICE has no business in the lives of our students, should be kept off our campuses, and really should be abolished.
Ms. Shernoff?
I will also say no, maybe not as strongly as Mr. Pepper, but I think this is, again, this kind of goes back to the parents' rights issue. We've talked a lot about parents' rights over the last, 4 years. And, I think there are laws in place to protect student privacy, particularly their records. Those laws apply to us as school board members, which sometimes, the public is frustrated that we can't speak out more about certain individuals. But, we always say that, would you want that for your kid? Would you want that to happen to your kid? And I think there needs to be a humanizing element to understanding that kids deserve privacy and parents deserve to be the ones that are making those decisions and have access to those records as well. And so I think it kind of all ties into a bigger picture, but no is my answer.
Mr. Stuffy?
Yeah, absolutely not. Right. I think Mr. Pepper outlined the reasons why. But fundamentally, what concerns me is the real impact that immigration actions are having on our students and our communities. So you're having, masked, ununiformed agents, in some cases, following families home from school, and the impact of that's having in the classrooms and in our communities. We've seen families singled out or targeted, and that inevitably reaches our students, right? And so, to the extent that students were asking last year, right, asking their principals, is it safe for my family to come to my graduation, right? We've made sure in LCPS that our protocols are really clear. We're there to protect student privacy. No family information is shared inappropriately, and that our administrators are given the right, clear information about any visitor or person that shows up on school property and how to deal with that properly. Every child deserves to feel protected and supported by their school, and I'll always stand up for that principle.
Mr. Riccardi?
Yeah, I agree 100% with what everybody said. I do not believe ICE should have access to those records. Our schools need to be a very safe place for our students, for our teachers, for our staff. And when we start bringing ICE into that picture, it really diminishes that sense of belonging, that sense of safety. There are other opportunities, I think, for them to do whatever they need to do elsewhere. But really, our schools need to be a safe haven for our children. They need to feel very safe and supported there. And so, I mean, just keep it simple. No.
Mr. Svenson?
Absolutely not. In response to your question, I think, as I said before, it's really the obligation of the school board to comply with the law. And no matter what requests come in from, the federal government, it kind of doing overreach into our local schools, we have to follow the law that's on the books, no matter what requests come our way. That's really important.
Mr. Munoz?
Absolutely no. I've been on the record. You follow me in social media or through my website at munoz4va.com. You can see that I've been on the record the entire time that I'm trying to eliminate politics and all that thing that doesn't belong in the classroom, whether it comes from the federal level or the state level or the local level. government should not be infringing between the rights of the parents and the relationship with that parent and the student. It's a no, full stop. That's it.
All right. Let's sneak in one more before we go to closing on this. And this is, what's the biggest issue that's not being adequately addressed right now by the school board or by the school division? I mean, wave a magic wand. What's the one thing you would really want to do? What's missing? What's your priority? I'm Shernoff.
My biggest, if I could wave a magic wand, it would be that every kid has exactly, every student comes to school and has exactly what they need and that they can achieve to their fullest potential. You've heard me talk about the subgroups, you've heard me talk about the data. All of those things are layered about many, many other issues that play into it. And I actually believe that we can get there. I think that LCPS, we talk about, making us the best division, and that was in our strategic plan. And to me, that feels silly. It's like, if we're doing what's best for kids and we're making sure that all kids can achieve, we don't need to have that goal, because that's what's going to happen, because they're going to go out into the world and they're going to be successful. And, if they're in poverty or if they're struggling, they're going to break that cycle, because we're going to give them exactly what they need. And so for me, it's always going to be about the students and celebrating the beautiful things that they do and the work that they bring to us every day, and our educators who support them, and our families and our communities that are the greater community that surround our schools. But I believe every student can and should achieve.
Mr. Istrefi?
Yes, thank you for the question. I agree. I think the greatest challenge and opportunity that we have at LCPS is staying focused on student achievement, especially while our community's needs are changing, where we have this increase in the number and percentage of special education students, English learner populations, and high needs children. And so I think that what that means is ensuring that every decision that we make, from budget to curriculum, is centered on outcomes for our students. And that's why we've created our performance monitoring committee, which is our student achievement committee, which I now chair, to hold the division accountable for those metrics, for progress in those areas. And we've also aligned the school division to the Virginia Literacy Act, which is deepening our curriculum, focusing on the science of reading, and make sure we're doing the work of student achievement right? We've invested in teacher professional development. There's so much more that we need to do, but this is really the core work that we should be concerned with and that we should be focused on.
Ms. Riccardi?
Yeah. So, for me in Sterling Park, and then just in Sterling in general, I think a really big thing is and I've talked about this, our English learners and our Latino population, and our high performers too. We've got a lot of really great high performers within LCPS, but I think the group of people that are kind of, and I hear parents say this all the time, they're kind of getting missed, are the 70% in the middle. They're good kids and they're good students and they're just plugging along. And I want to make sure that we're not losing them while we're trying to address and create great high performing programs, and also addressing our lowest performers too. I want to make sure we're taking care of all of our kids throughout the entire life cycle of their learning. The other thing I would say too that's really missing right now, or that is it definitely in play, is the whole issue of a highly political environment. And some people have put a lot of politics into LCPS, and you see it from the top all the way down. And my big thing right now is lowering that temperature and trying to lower the political rhetoric that's happening right now within LCPS.
Mr. Svenson?
I spoke a little bit about this at the beginning, but I think, wave a magic wand. I would love to invest and have each student excited about the career pathway opportunities that they have before them. I think that means continuing to invest in the amazing STEM academies that we have here in Loudoun that are such a draw for parents and families and students, but also making sure that we have opportunities for students who are more interested in the arts and social sciences. That's why I'm really excited by the Academy of Global Studies and Linguistics, because it's kind of offering that pathway for folks who are interested in global leadership and business. And I think, exploring how we can continue to build pathways on that front. and making sure we're doubling down on our career and technical education, because we want to make sure whether a student is planning to go to a four-year college or they are exploring a trade after graduation, that they're set up for success. We have so many businesses here in Northern Virginia, so many opportunities to take advantage of, and we want to make sure that we're partnering with them so that our students can identify a career they're excited about after graduation.
Mr. Munoz?
I believe that if keeping the eye on the ball is the most key thing that we can do. I think we took the eye out of the ball, and that ball is the students. We don't focus enough on them, and we allowed our politics and other ideologies that has nothing to do with the education of the kids to kind of transform the way that we are trying to save our kids. That will be the one thing that I will focus, and also the transparency. We need to be very clear in what we communicate and access. I know that we need to have that close collaboration and civility with the parents, and it seems like it's been eroding instead of being increasing. I mean, we know that we took cameras of the school boards, so we need to have more transparency and focus on the main thing, which is kids and their education.
Mr. Pepper?
So, like many others said, if I had a magic wand, what would I have? 100% graduation rate, 100% pass rate on the SOLs, every kid leaving school, college, career, military ready, every kid feeling like they belong, loving school, loving their teacher, 100% teacher recruitment and retention rates. But we know that's not the reality, right? So what do we need to focus on? Well, really, we need to focus on our gaps. Where are we struggling? Where are we behind with our students? Where are we behind with our educators, right? I always jokingly say, I'd love to be a teacher in Loudoun County, but I can't take a $35,000 pay cut because then I wouldn't be able to live in Loudoun County. So there's a lot of things that we can focus on that can take our division, from where it is, which is in a pretty good spot, right? We might not do everything perfect, but we're in a pretty good spot. And how do we take that to that next level and make it so that we're in the best spot possible? How do we focus on our kids, making sure every kid is achieving, every kid is successful, and every kid belongs? And I think that's the theme of all of us tonight. I think everyone here is here because they want what's best for their kids. They're not here because they're, a political career. They're not here, because they want recognition. We're here because we all want what's best for our kids and the kids of Loudoun County. And I think that's the most important thing.
Well, thank you. I enjoyed the conversation tonight, and I appreciate you all have spent time with us doing interviews for the paper, for Loudoun Now, and those videos are up. And I know we didn't get to all the topics tonight, but I do appreciate all your comments, and running without people like you running, our community suffers for that. So you guys are doing a great job, and we thank you for that. So we're gonna do 1 minute closing arguments or closing statements, and then we'll turn back over to the league. And we can start with Mr. Istrefi.
First of all, thank you very much. I don't know, I'm sure others agree with me, but this is really what I would have loved a candidate forum to feel like, and the experience of it. So really appreciate this opportunity to have this dialogue. As I mentioned earlier, I'm running for re-election to represent the Sterling District. I feel like I was a fierce advocate for the Sterling District. We've been able to accomplish so much in less than 2 years. I was an English language learner myself. And during my term, we delivered some of the most significant teacher pay raises in recent years. We've funded after-school programs in Sterling Park for 5 Sterling elementary schools. We finally brought special programs to Eastern Loudoun where they didn't exist before. So now we'll have the IB International Baccalaureate program at Parkview High School, and we'll have the Transition Center and the Recovery School. And so we've been really focused, and we're focusing our budget on where it matters most, and that is our schools. So over 90% of our budget is focused on school-based positions, and we'll continue to do that. I've been a strong voice for limiting cell tower and power line expansion near our schools or communities. And there's so much more I want to do, so I'm running for re-election to build on that progress. Moving forward, I want to continue to close those achievement gaps, continue pushing more resources to our Title I schools, but I'd also like to expand dual language immersion and career and technical education. And I want to continue to support our teachers and make sure that they feel valued and they want to teach here in Loudoun County.
Ms. Riccardi?
Yeah. So school board members are really tasked with three core things from the Virginia Code. The first is that we're listening, we're watching for academic excellence. We're making sure our students are performing well. And for more than a decade, our students in Sterling Park have literally been forgotten, and their test scores are still not showing significant long-term improvement. So I would say, number one, that's a huge goal for me. The second one is for accountability with regards to holding the school board administration accountable. And this school board has been rubber stamping the leadership's decision-making, budgets, the superintendent's salary raises constantly, and they don't push back enough and ask enough difficult questions and hold this administration accountable. And third, I think the really big thing is listening to the public. And when it comes right down to it, we've only had one town hall in Sterling over the last 2 years. And I want to make sure that we're listening to the public and listening to our constituents, and people know who I am at all the schools and within all of our communities. So that's really what I'm going to bring to the table.
Mr. Svenson?
Well, thanks so much, Norm, for moderating. And I really appreciate the substantive conversation by everybody here. I think it shows that we have a lot in common. And I think that what I would hope to bring to the school board is I'm a litigator by trade, and I think a lot of people think that can be very confrontational, but actually on a day-to-day basis, I am collaborating with my colleagues, but also with folks across the case from me to make progress on our case and work towards an outcome. And that's kind of the experience that I'll be bringing to the table, working with folks who I agree with, disagree with, to have common sense solutions here on the school board, because it's all about meeting the needs of our kids and our families and our educators. That's the North Star. And as a school board member, that's what I'll be focused on. I think it's really important that we have a diverse array of perspectives on the school board. And I'm excited to hopefully bring the perspective of a young parent, someone who attended Loudoun County Public Schools. And I'd be really grateful to earn the vote of folks in Broad Run.
Mr. Munoz?
Well, thank you everyone for doing this. This is great. It was really great. But I believe that Loudoun County is at a crossroads. We can't continue a path of division and mistrust. We need to choose collaboration, civility, and results. And I promise to my parents that students come first, and teachers, and we need to make sure that taxpayers' dollars go where they need to make the biggest difference, which is in the classroom. I will never forget this position is about service, not politics. And I believe that together we can build and rebuild this trust, strengthen the communications, ensure Loudoun County Public Schools set the standard of excellence, not just in Virginia, but the rest of the country. And once again, I'm Santos Munoz, and thank you so much for your time, for caring about our schools, and for being part of the solution. And again, I believe that Loudoun can move forward together. And thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you. Mr. Pepper.
Thank you again. This actually is really enlightening. It's nice to actually have a civil conversation about school issues, regardless of, political affiliation, beliefs, background. And I think it's really important to hear a wide variety of perspectives. As we've heard tonight, there's, a lot of issues facing our schools. Loudoun schools are good, but, they're not perfect, and we're still making progress on a lot of things. And a lot of the issues we're facing are external threats, and we need someone who understands what day-to-day life is in a school. And that's me. We need someone who understands from a parent perspective of 2 students in Loudoun County Public Schools, what are our students facing? And that's me. And so I'm running to represent the Dulles District because I feel like my experience, my personal stake, give me a unique perspective on public schools and can easily, well, not easily, but help solve the crisis. And like I said, I'm happy to work with anyone, anytime, because really, truly, it's about listening and doing what's right for our students and doing what's right for our community.
And Ms. Shernoff gets the last word.
All right. I also want to thank everyone for having us tonight. And it's clear that people really care about our students and our kids. And in closing, I just want to say that over the last 2 years, I'm really proud of my work on the board. I feel like I have really contributed my experience as an educator with my experience in day-to-day schools and continuing to spend time in our schools. So I will continue that. I want to make informed decisions for our students, our teachers, and our families. And I really remain committed to showing up and to doing the work and to doing the research and to having the meetings and the dialogues and to building those relationships, because that is what really matters. And I remain committed to staying active in our schools and having conversations that are authentic with the stakeholders, with the people doing the work in the trenches. And I will continue to build trust with the community through the dialogue and communication that I have had. And that has been successful for me. And even though I'm unopposed this time, which I am eternally grateful for, I really want to earn people's vote. I believe that you still have to earn that bubble in. And so I'm really asking for people to support me. And I am excited to see what's ahead because there is good work to do for our kids.
All right, thank you.
You
Any
ready?
closing remarks? Yep, go ahead.
Thank you to our moderator, Norm, our timer, who kept us moving along, and to all the candidates for sharing your time, insights, and commitment to our community tonight. We invite everyone to revisit and share the recording, available on YouTube in the next few days. At LWV Loudoun, and we will also be sharing it with Loudoun Now, so you should see that in the next couple of days. Thank you again. That was lovely. And the end.